global economy in the wake of President Trump's tariff trade war.
Major trading partners, it could engage in bilateral talks with countries on new trade arrangements.
The Great Chip War. How U.S. pressure and South Korea's alliance are reshaping China's tech future. The Asian tech industry is undergoing significant turmoil, driven by escalating American trade policies, a resurgence of Trump-era tariffs, and South Korea's growing alignment with the United States. One of the most striking outcomes of these developments is a sharp decline in China's chip imports. As China struggles to secure critical components for key industries like electric vehicles, EVs, the global economic balance is shifting. The United States' efforts to curtail China's technological rise, which have intensified since 2025, have led to a 31% drop in China's semiconductor imports from South Korea. Given South Korea's central role in semiconductor manufacturing, home to tech giants like Samsung and SK Hynix, this decline has raised concerns about China facing a potential chip crisis. But how will this affect China's technological ambitions? And why has South Korea chosen to strengthen ties with the United States at the cost of its trade with China? The battle for semiconductors, the heart of the conflict. For years, the technological rivalry between the United States and China has been intensifying, particularly in critical sectors such as semiconductors and artificial intelligence. South Korea, caught between these two global superpowers, has often found itself pressured to take a definitive stance. Given its advanced semiconductor industry, South Korea has long been a key supplier of memory chips and processors, essential for China's smartphone and EV markets. However, U.S. export controls and licensing restrictions have made it increasingly difficult for Chinese companies to access advanced Korean chips. On March 17, 2025, official trade data revealed that South Korea's semiconductor exports to China had dropped by 31% year-on-year. A South Korean Ministry of Commerce official stated, "As U.S. control measures tighten and our alliance strengthens, we are prepared to lose market share in China. Our priority is maintaining strategic partnerships." This statement ignited discussions in Seoul's diplomatic and economic circles, signaling a significant shift in South Korea's trade priorities. U.S. strategy, tariffs first, deals later. The United States has not remained passive in this geopolitical chess game. On March 16, 2025, American trade officials met with South Korea's Minister of Commerce, explicitly demanding greater access to South Korea's automotive and semiconductor markets. This move could strain South Korea's historic trade ties with China, as increased cooperation with the U.S. would mean additional trade barriers for Chinese firms. For China, this is a troubling development. Over the years, China had relied on Korean semiconductors to compensate for its own production shortcomings, particularly in high-capacity memory chips and advanced processors, key components for electric vehicle manufacturing. Beijing's ambitious Made in China 2025 program aimed at achieving semiconductor self-sufficiency, but progress has been slower than anticipated. The latest trade data underscores China's continued reliance on foreign chips, a vulnerability that is becoming more pronounced as access to Korean technology diminishes. The EV sector, China's market under pressure. One of the biggest casualties of the semiconductor war is China's electric vehicle industry. China leads the world in EV production and has built a vast supply chain for batteries, semiconductors, and automotive electronics. However, U.S. restrictions now extend beyond semiconductors to EV components, making it increasingly difficult for Chinese automakers to maintain their competitive edge. South Korea's cooperation with the U.S. disrupts China's once secure supply of critical EV parts, threatening the country's dominance in the sector. However, China still holds some economic leverage. South Korean firms depend on Chinese factories for smartphone and consumer electronics production. In the past, Beijing has used its vast domestic market as a bargaining tool, keeping trade opportunities open for foreign businesses. However, Washington's aggressive tariffs and export controls have tilted the balance in favor of U.S.-South Korea cooperation, forcing China to seek alternative supply chains. How is China responding? Facing growing isolation in the global semiconductor ecosystem, China is seeking partnerships in Taiwan, Malaysia, and Japan. However, geopolitics complicates these efforts. The United States provides Taiwan with military support, limiting China's influence there. while Malaysia and Japan maintain close economic ties with Washington. This leaves Beijing with few reliable alternatives. U.S. Senator Marco Rubio's remarks on March 16, 2025, highlight America's economic strategy. We protect our domestic producers first, then we negotiate with the rest of the world. This reflects the U.S. shift from free trade to protectionist policies, where allies like South Korea are encouraged to prioritize American interests over Chinese market opportunities. The South Korean dilemma: U.S. market versus Chinese trade. For South Korea, the situation is complex. While some argue that abandoning the Chinese market is a mistake, others believe that siding with the U.S. opens new economic opportunities. South Korean semiconductor manufacturers are particularly keen on maintaining their technological edge, fearing that China's push for domestic chip production could eventually threaten their global dominance. Moreover, the United States is offering incentives to South Korean firms, including investment benefits and security exemptions for critical technologies. This makes it easier for South Korea to justify prioritizing U.S. cooperation over Chinese trade. The consumer impact: rising prices and supply shortages. This growing semiconductor rift will likely have ripple effects across global markets. Consumers may see price increases and delays in new technology rollouts for products like smartphones, laptops, electric vehicles, industrial robotics, and AI-powered devices. With Chinese brands facing supply constraints, South Korean brands like Samsung could gain market share. However, Beijing may retaliate by imposing new tariffs, restricting Korean companies in China, or even launching consumer boycotts. Strategies as used in past trade disputes. A new global trade order? Since early 2025, senior Korean officials have been in constant dialogue with Washington, ensuring that South Korea aligns with America's economic strategy. While Beijing may attempt to counter these moves, the reality remains. Without access to advanced semiconductors, China's technological progress could stall. At the same time, South Korea must tread carefully. While it has strengthened its U.S. ties, it remains wary of permanently severing its economic relationship with China. As history has shown, economic interests often outweigh political alliances, meaning Seoul could adjust its stance in the future if trade conditions shift. For now, the world watches as the U.S.-China tech war intensifies. The semiconductor industry is at the heart of this battle, shaping the future of AI, 5G per 6G networks, autonomous vehicles, and global innovation. Who will win? In the short term, China faces significant challenges as its semiconductor supply tightens. In the long term, Beijing may accelerate domestic production to reduce dependence on foreign chips.